Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening, taking some time out of your evening to be with us today. My name is Spiri Rangusis, and I'm the National Coordinator for Volunteer Engagement. And I'll just be basically walking through an orientation for volunteer engagement for the Gutsy Walk that's coming up. I'd also like to make a couple of introductions. We have on the line with us today Eric Berkelman, who is in fact our new Manager of Volunteer Engagement. And I also have Naval to...
Hi, this is Naval. I am the National Coordinator, Gutsy Walk, and good evening everyone, and thank you for joining us today.
And Naval's here just assisting me because this is actually my first webinar, so she's holding my hand just in case I pull any plugs out or do any damage to the technology. So some of you, I believe, may have actually been part of the Gutsy Walk committee last year, so this may be a familiar slideshow for you. Those of you that are new, I'll just go through sort of step by step, just some overview and details of how to engage volunteers and basically the journey of the volunteers. So if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them using this box as we go through the presentation. I will be addressing them towards the end of the presentation, at which point I will unmute you in the event that there are any follow-up questions that need to be addressed. Our agenda for this evening is basically the journey of the volunteer, recruiting volunteers, scheduling, follow-up and thank you overviews, and suggested timelines. Now, the Gutsy Walk, every year we have a new goal for the Gutsy Walk. So this year, the 2018 Gutsy Walk goal is 3.65 million. And basically, volunteers are the people that help us get there. Now, the journey of the volunteer basically is sort of fourfold. So we'll start with recruitment. We'll go on to communication, the event day experience, and then follow-up and thank yous. All of these contribute to a great volunteer engagement experience. Now, what motivates volunteers? If anyone has any suggestions or ideas, if you want to type those in to your calls box or the questions box. Okay, so basically we have some stats from and graphics from volunteer.ca. Basically, one of the motivators is connection to the cause. Another would be helping people. There are those that wish to use their skills and experiences. Some are looking for employment. For some, it's an opportunity to be more social. For others, the motivator would be contributing to the community. And for others, it's to learn something new. At this point, I just want to make sure everybody's there and I haven't put you to sleep yet. Would you like to take a guess as to which of these motivators would be the top motivator in Canada for volunteer engagement? Can everybody hear me?
Eric. Let's unmute Eric. Hi, Eric.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
All right, yes, we can hear you. I was muted and I was, thank you for unmuting me. Yes, no, we can hear you. We can hear you just fine. Don't worry about it. I think most of the people on the call might be muted right now. On our end, on the webinar side, there's no chat box for us to type the questions in right now, or at least not that I'm seeing on my end. So let's move forward and we'll go without the questions for now.
Sounds like a plan. Okay, I'm going to just mute you just to avoid any static. Okay.
Thank you.
So I'll just basically share the results. So basically, it's actually contributing to the community is the greatest motivator, followed by using skills and experiences. And then thirdly comes in the personally affected by the cause. Now, within Crohn's and colitis, we do actually know that the majority of our volunteers, more than half, actually are volunteers because they have a connection to the cause, whether they are personally affected or if they have a family member that is affected by one of these diseases. Now, we will start with recruitment, the who and the how. So basically, the Gutsy Walk captains are not the only ones responsible for recruiting volunteers. Other committee members and sponsors and teams can also be involved with the actual recruitment as well as volunteering process. And when we're looking at this graphic here, we can start with the blue box, who can you ask? So basically you would be able, individually, would be able to ask family members, friends, colleagues, or peers, possibly people within your network, whether you belong to any professional committees or clubs or associations. Others would be able to recruit through their family members, friends, and colleagues also, as well as their associations, clubs, and teams. Now, the general outreach, when we move out to the yellow box, would basically be publicizing on a chapter or a Gutsy Walk media site like Facebook, and it would be related to general call-outs looking for volunteers. Now, the how would be the different processes that we would be able to use. So it would be a general outreach, causal mission, or broader skill set or interests, or targeted recruitment. So basically, we'll start from the outer circle in. The general outreach would basically involve social media, local listings such as Kijiji, recruiting through causal mission. Basically, as a patient or a patient caregiver, you may be connected to some other Crohn's and colitis or IBD communities online. You would be able to share the event details, the need for volunteers to help out with those groups. And those groups are basically already connected to the cause and may be looking for ways to offer support. Now, recruiting using broader skill set or interest, this is more often used for committee type roles similar to your own, where a specific skill set is required based on the role or function for the volunteer. The Gutsy Walk event day is a much broader opportunity. However, there may be some need for someone with past experience for certain roles, specifically where money may be handled, or if your location is having a barbecue, somebody who is experienced flipping burgers, for example. You wouldn't want to put somebody that's never flipped a burger on manning the barbecue. And then when we're looking at the inner circle, the targeted methods, this is basically time or task-specific volunteering. And this basically would be an example of somebody, for example, needing a French-speaking volunteer to conduct thank yous to corporate donors during the business hours. So it's very specific, very targeted. So really isn't that related to recruitment for an event day function. But I just wanted to make sure I gave you sort of the general overview of the different recruitment methods. Now, when recruiting volunteers, we need to take sort of a three-step process, starting with determining the needs. Now, at this point, committee volunteers should already be in place. However, you may still have a few gaps, in which case you would need to connect with your staff partner to assess and determine next steps. We also would have, event day, we would need to start getting a sense of event day volunteer requirements at this point. discuss with returning committee members things like how many event day volunteers did they have last year? Was that enough? Do we need to increase the numbers? Did some roles require more or less volunteers on the day? And can the schedule be tweaked a little to accommodate the needs of volunteers switching to maybe roles where more assistance is required? And then we could also consider new roles. These would be opportunities to enhance something based on past event opportunities. So those that have been through the Gutsy Walk recruitment process, what worked before, what was effective, maybe that's something we can consider using again this year. Now, when we're looking, the next step would be to identify the existing resources, and those would be potentially sort of past event volunteers or local resources such as high schools. This is an ideal opportunity for students to accrue their community service hours. You can actually connect with your staff partner who may already have contacts within schools locally to get an announcement posted on a school bulletin, in a newsletter, or on a notice board. The key, however, for students is that they must be volunteering at the event. Those that are participating on a team, they don't accrue volunteer hours. They must actually be assisting with the event. And additionally, when dealing with high school students and anybody below, under the age of 17, they are required to bring a waiver that is signed by a parent or a legal guardian in order to volunteer. Local colleges and universities are also a great resource. And occasionally there are local volunteer centres in larger communities. And if there are no local volunteer centres, there are some employment or community centres that often have a volunteer posting board. And the best resources would actually be your past event day volunteers. And basically, as long as they had completed their volunteer application form or any past event schedules were submitted, we would have uploaded all that information into our database, and we would be actually able to draw from that to pull out some contact information for people that you can reach out to. Now, the third step would be to plan for gaps. What you can do basically would be conduct maybe some brainstorming sessions within your committees to identify local resources that may have been overlooked. We can help by posting event day volunteer postings on Charity Village. This is a national site for the non-profit sector. It's actually used for jobs as well as volunteer opportunities that you may or may not be familiar with. And this is a service we provide for each and every Gutsy Walk location. And the goal would be to put the postings up by mid to late April. Now, if there's been a significant change in your event day requirements due to maybe a change of location or other factors which are causing you some concern, please ensure that you connect with your staff partners to address, and then we in turn can look at other options, possibly engaging a neighborhood chapter, a neighboring chapter who may not be affiliated with a specific Gutsy Walk, but has a volunteer pool we can possibly tap into. We may have other local volunteers who are involved with the organization that we could reach out to, and we could also address some Facebook postings or other social media postings locally. Bringing volunteers on board. It's a fairly straightforward process. The first step would be to actually have them complete the online application form. Ensuring all the volunteers complete the online application form gives us their basic contact information that's, as I mentioned, uploaded into the system, and we can then track and reach out for future volunteer opportunities. The screening and communication, this is kept very simple for event day. The key thing is completing the volunteer application form, and followed by pre-event communications that you would be making with them to coordinate role assignments for the event day. And then finally, on the event day, give some orientation, ensuring that they have a great experience. Now, what you can do. You can connect with your committee to begin discussing day of needs, and if there are any remaining committee member gaps or new ways volunteers can enhance the experience. For example, a couple of volunteer event experience floaters who would go around to other volunteers, ensuring that they're getting their snacks, water breaks, washroom breaks, and if they have any questions that they're able to answer, and basically ensure they have what they need to perform their tasks. You can think of new ways volunteers can add value to the event. That would be the floaters. Now, get a list of the past year's Gutsy Walk event day volunteers. This, as I mentioned, can be actually pulled from our database, so you can actually request it via your staff contacts. You can find local places to post volunteer needs. Things like coffee shops potentially might be an option, places of worship, or community centres that may have a volunteer board. And then if you can direct the interested people to our volunteer application forms, they can complete that and we can get the process rolling. Now, how we can help. Now, we are a team. You're not in this on your own. Together, the idea would be to make 2018 the best year ever. And here's how we can help you as volunteer captains. Now, position descriptions for the specific Gutsy Walk committee member roles are available under our volunteer tool on our website. These can be referred to if you still have committee gaps that you are looking to recruit for. The online postings on Charity Village for the event day for all 60 sites, as we mentioned, we would be targeting mid to late April in order to post these event day opportunities. And social media, we can have Twitter and Facebook posts about the Gutsy Walk submitted. And we would require an event day waiver for any surprise volunteers. So the idea would be to ensure that you have a copy of the event day waiver. If you don't already have one, please contact your staff partners or us here at the Volunteer Engagement Department, and we'll be able to send you a soft copy that you can print off, so you can actually have copies handy for the actual day. This is just a visual of the actual volunteer waiver sign-off. If a waiver was previously completed by a returning volunteer, it does not need to be redone. Again, under 17-year-olds must have a parent or guardian sign the waiver, as it is a huge risk for Crohn's and colitis because it's an outdoor event and there are many unknown and unpredictable elements that can impact the day. For example, a severe weather condition. You might have a summer storm. You never know. So that concludes the recruitment piece. We're now moving over to our communications. So basically, screening and communication. The right fit equals a happy volunteer. Now, happy volunteers are generally those who are using skills and experiences they wanted to utilize, and additionally doing what they expected to do and have the support and tools that they need for to be successful in their role. Now, screening for the event day volunteers is very simple. It's basically just completing the online volunteer application form. And again, I can't emphasize it enough, make sure it's signed and submitted by a parent or guardian for those under 17. And actually the volunteer application form, if volunteer applicants go and complete the application form online, it is actually integrated into the application form. So anybody over 18 plus, all they need to do is go to our website and complete the application form, and then the waiver would actually be a part of that. And we need to help volunteers be ready and come prepared for the event day by thinking about key information needed ahead of time. Things like how to get there, a map, directions, if there's public transport that's available to get them to the site, or if they need to coordinate a ride, especially for the younger volunteers, if there is no public transport that accesses the location. It's highlighting what to wear and what to bring. Obviously, weather permitting, dress accordingly, what to bring. Again, it's just a lot of it is common sense, but you may need to just actually emphasize it's an open location. We don't want to be bringing handbags and valuables that need to be stored somewhere safely, because potentially they may be left lying around. So not recommended to bring anything that's really valuable. Ensure that they have on-site contacts where they can connect with if they need some help, so a leader or a volunteer captain that may be a little bit more seasoned in the event due to prior experience. And also just touch on some health and safety aspects, just sort of high level, how to stay safe. Now, we have under our volunteer tools some sample volunteer communications that you can certainly utilize. Basically, the first one is just an acknowledgement once the applications are received, just giving the event details, where the location is, the date and the time. And this is generally sort of, so it would be a response to the applications once they've been received. Number two would be the sort of overview of the actual roles that may be assigned. It is recommended that this be sent 4 weeks or more prior to the Gutsy Walk. It just highlights the different roles that potentially they may be asked to fulfill. And the third one is the actual individual schedule with the role assignment, and it's recommended to send that out to the appropriate volunteers 7 days before, sort of a week before the actual event. In addition to the 3 communication pieces, we also have a sample volunteer event day information sheet. This basically will be sort of the detailed information about sort of parking, arrival information, public transport, and also a list of what to bring. You can use it as is, or you can if you desire to tweak it a little bit and sort of add some additional things that may be specific to your location, by all means, please feel free to modify the communication. Now, with regards to scheduling, it's recommended that you anticipate a 10 to 25% drop-off rate from the recruited event day people. You never know, somebody may be sick, something may come up, the weather might not be so great, so some people may simply not want to come and stand or stand around in a park for the morning. So the ballpark figures that we look at is basically 10 to 25% drop-off rate. Now, in addition to that, we have some guidelines of numbers for volunteers needed at your event, depending on the size. So just sort of an overview here of what's recommended as far as how many volunteers based on how large or small your actual event may be. And when scheduling, allow friends and family to volunteer together. It just keeps it more fun and more interesting. Maybe even consider having an incentive for the top word of mouth recruiter, the person who basically brings in the most people to volunteer with them. When scheduling, also keep in mind transition times if people are fulfilling more than one role and are required to move from one area to another, or ensure that you're allowing for some break time in between. And then consider scheduling a few floaters who can jump in when needed and can act as the volunteer experience ambassadors to give the volunteers water, snacks, and cover breaks as and when required. Another tool that we have for you online is basically a sample of the event day scheduling tool. We're providing this as a tool which has been used in the past and may or may not be of use to you. Some people have used it and found it very useful. Others have their own methods of scheduling. Another scheduling tool that we're introducing is actually a free online scheduling tool. It's available for you to use, and it's called signup.com. You may have already had conversations with your staff partner about using the scheduling tool. Now, the key benefits of using an online tool such as this is basically it significantly reduces the back and forth of email communications required to assign event day volunteers their designated task for the day. It would allow an at-a-glance and live status of assigned versus unassigned spots. It enables automated reminders to be generated to volunteers prior to the event. There's ease of generating a sign-up check-in sheet for the actual event day. There's a reporting capability that allows you to do that. And there's also an automated post-event thank you to all registrants that can be submitted through the tool. And in addition to that, it's also an easy post-event data capture that can be forwarded to your staff partners to be uploaded to our systems after the event. So if you are interested in participating as a pilot user for this year's event, let your staff partner know, then we can coordinate a webinar training session to review the tool and offer you some guidance in scheduling your day. Now we're coming to the event day experience. So the equation for an ideal event day experience is basically have fun, be active, and learn a little about the cause. These will actually equate to a memorable experience and positive ambassadors for us within our volunteer networks. If we accomplish this, it may lead us to increased volunteer interest and involvement within the organization. And for example, we would have the volunteers would like to returning volunteers and potentially new committee members that we can actually steward into alternate roles. What you can do to make it a positive experience, creating a great day experience for the volunteers would include making them feel welcome when they arrive and having a dedicated space for them to register, confirm locations of washrooms, first aid and break times so everybody knows where everything is. Make sure what they need to do their work is ready for them to go. Introduce them to their teammates for the day. Letting them know why what they are doing is important. And helping them know how to do their work. If it's a student collecting hours, you would need to ensure that you sign off their volunteer hours at the end of the shift. And basically be available to answer questions or introduce them to their contact if there's a lead for their specific area. Another suggestion is to have a pre-event walkthrough. Can be really helpful, and students can actually use this towards their community hours as well. Some tips for the volunteer captains would be to explain the types of volunteer positions that are available and what type of person would be a best fit in the role. This would be just prior to scheduling, just to get an idea of what the individual would like to contribute to the day. Have people confirm a week or two before the event that they're still planning on attending. And assign captains for each station. Typically, these would be returnee volunteers who have had the experience of the event to draw from. Be flexible. And have a way volunteers can contact you throughout the day. If you're not in a centralized location, or if you are, let them know where they can find you. And make sure they get food and water. Each event is different as far as what may be offered. Some may just, I think at minimal, it would be a good idea to have some snacks available. It's basically, some events span for the whole morning. So it's definitely good to have some snacks and water that can be offered to the volunteers. And keep records for next year. It's also an idea to ask for feedback, see how the experience actually was for the individuals. And let promising volunteers know about other opportunities, like Gutsy Walk Planning Committee, so we can prepare for the following year. Now, with regards to the orientation, the key things that we would want to orientate the volunteers to, basically Gutsy Walk, the event itself, Crohn's and Colitis Canada, the event location and what their specific role would be. The orientation helps the event run smoothly, everyone stays safe, and people have fun and feel good about helping. Again, back to our tools page, we do have a sample orientation script that you're quite welcome to utilize. Just gives you some pointers. And then the final piece of the puzzle would be that follow-up and thank you. The key things we want to achieve as part of our follow-up and thank yous, basically to make note of important details, they're still fresh in our minds. Any observations of what worked well, who performed exceptionally, in addition to any challenges that may have been encountered. Set ourselves up for success for next year before this year's event ends. Keep good records and close any loops. As we said, the schedule or sign-up sheets, if they have been returned to us in the past, the data would have been uploaded, and that's how we would be able to produce a past volunteers listing to reach out again for this year's event. So it's really important to keep the records pretty clear and concise. And of course, to ensure that the volunteers feel appreciated for their efforts and contributions to the day. Let them know the impact of what we have achieved together. What you can do, follow up and saying thank you, would be to review the sign-out sheets is complete and confirm that we have records for all volunteers who attended and for those that may have not. And it's recommended that you're prepared to send out a thank you email to volunteers 3 days after the event or earlier, highlighting the key achievements and successes of the day. So examples would be the dollars raised for your specific event and the number of participants. and how we can help. Nationally, we will be preparing a thank you message for all volunteers with the overall event results. With the information that you provide, as we mentioned, we'll be able to track and update our records, our volunteer records. And we'll continue to gather tools, resources, and best practices in order to improve the support we can offer. There's another little tool for you, a sample volunteer thank you wording. Again, entirely up to you if you'd like to use this as a template, or if you'd like to tweak it a little bit and personalize it for your specific event. And the final steps would be to ensure that your Gutsy Walk chair and local development coordinator staff partner have copies of your documents that we use. That would be both hard and soft copies that we used for the planning of the event. And then please confirm the complete list of volunteers who came out and those who didn't. We wouldn't want to be sending thank yous to those that didn't show. And flag any issues, concerns, or ideas for ways to improve next year with your Gutsy Walk chair and your development coordinator who is your staff partner. Now, a few timelines to keep in mind. The plan piece would be final needs numbers should be confirmed by committees 6 to 8 weeks before or earlier if possible. In addition, having your gap assessment done 6 to 8 weeks before the event, so that's around about where we're at now. Event day recruitment starts a month or maybe earlier before. And all volunteers are required to complete the online volunteer application form, ideally a minimum of 2 weeks before. And final, for the confirmation, final schedules should be sent out a week before and reminders 3 days prior. Post-event thank yous 3 days after would be the maximum with your local results. And national thank you will be, with overall results, will be ready to send out a week after the event. And don't forget to pat yourself on the back for a job well done, because it starts with you and all the hard work and effort that you put in pre-event. So that concludes our presentation this evening. I will unmute you, so if there are any questions that anybody may have, we can certainly address this time. Now, I would ask if you can mute yourself locally when if you're not asking a question, just otherwise we get static and it'll be very difficult to hear anybody that might be attempting to ask a question. I open the floor to you. Questions? Is everybody still there?
Yeah, can you hear Eric?
Yep.
Yes, I can.
I think that it was a lot of information, and I think that if anybody hasn't spoken up quite yet, you're more than welcome to shoot Spiri or myself an email and ask any other questions offline. We're happy to answer, and we're always available for you guys, so don't hesitate to shoot us questions. We understand that it's a big undertaking, and we're really happy to have you on board. And thank you guys for putting the presentation together. I'm sure everybody here appreciates it.
Hi, can you hear me? It's Brenda McAlpine.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
My one question would be the program that you talked about that automatically schedules and sends reminders. Is that the same one we used a couple of years ago?
It used to be called Volunteer Spot, I believe.
Yeah, it's the same one. Okay.
What was your experience? I mean, it has been enhanced since then. I'm sure there's been some changes and enhancements made to the system, but did you have sort of any experiences you'd like to share?
Personally, I found it very awkward, and I didn't find that it reduced the emails back and forth. But having said that, I hesitate that maybe it was my understanding of how to use it. I felt that I was still sending out the same number of emails.
Oh, you did. So by all means, connect with your staff member if you are interested in seeing sort of an overview of the product as it now stands. The idea is if we are able to have a group of sort of pilot volunteers that would like to test it out for this year's event, we would coordinate a training orientation for you.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Brenda. Anybody else? Okay. So again, thank you very much for taking time out of your afternoons, evenings to be with us today. As Eric mentioned, please feel free to contact us with any questions offline. And we look forward to working with you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.